They dragged me out of that hospital like I was nothing. My own daughter was screaming in labor behind those doors, and my son-in-law stood there with his arms crossed, blocking me like I was a stranger off the street. "She only wants family inside," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Family. The word burned. I am her mother. I held her through every nightmare, every broken heart, every moment she thought she couldn't survive. And now, when she needed me most, I was standing in a cold hallway crying while nurses whispered and strangers stared. Have you ever been thrown away by the people you sacrificed everything for? I spent 6 hours in that corridor. 6 hours watching other families walk through those doors while I pressed my back against the wall and tried to make myself invisible. My legs ached, my chest felt crushed, but worse than the pain was the confusion. Renee wouldn't do this. She wouldn't. Not my baby girl. Not after everything we survived together. But Gerald kept smirking every time he walked past me, and the nurses kept avoiding my eyes. Something was wrong, something deeper than a misunderstanding or a moment of stress. I could feel it in my bones, the kind of knowing that only comes from 38 years of watching people at their most vulnerable. I just didn't know how bad it was yet. I didn't know my daughter was trapped. And I definitely didn't know the sick, twisted reason Gerald wanted me gone that day.
My name is Elaine Dawson, 63 years old, 38 years working as a nursing assistant, watching people live and die and everything in between. I raised 2 kids, mostly alone, while their father drank himself through our savings and our marriage. When I finally left him, Renee was 12 and Terrence was 9. I worked double shifts to keep the lights on. I missed dance recitals because I was wiping down hospital beds. I skipped meals so they could have second helpings. That's what mothers do. You don't think about it, you just do it. Renee was my sensitive one. The kind of kid who cried when she saw a dead bird on the sidewalk. She'd bring home stray cats and kids from school who looked sad. I used to tell her, "Baby, you can't fix everybody." But she'd look at me with those big brown eyes and say, "I can try." That's how Gerald happened. She met him at a community barbecue 6 years ago. He worked as a mechanic, had a clean truck, good teeth, decent job. Most importantly, he made her laugh. After years of watching her struggle through bad relationships and worse breakups, I wanted to believe this one was different. Gerald showed up to Sunday dinners with flowers. He called me Ma before they were even engaged. He fixed my kitchen sink without me asking. He seemed considerate, thoughtful, the kind of man who opened car doors and remembered birthdays. But there were moments, small ones, moments I told myself not to overthink. Like the time Renee mentioned wanting to visit her friend in Atlanta, and Gerald laughed it off saying, "Why would you waste money on that?" Or when she cut her hair shorter, and he said, "I liked it better long." Not cruel, just controlling the temperature in the room, making sure he was always the thermostat. When they got engaged, I hugged him. I smiled for the photos. I even helped pay for part of the wedding because Renee wanted lace tablecloths and I wanted her to have one perfect day. The wedding was beautiful. Renee glowed in her dress. Gerald cried during his vows. I thought maybe I'd been wrong about those little moments. Maybe I was just being an overprotective mother who couldn't let go. The first year of their marriage seemed fine. They bought a small house 20 minutes from me. Renee kept her job at the credit union. We still did Sunday dinners most weeks. Terrence would come by with his girlfriend. We'd laugh, eat too much, complain about the news. Normal family stuff. But then Renee got pregnant, and everything started changing. At first, it was small. She'd canceled dinner last minute saying she was too tired. Fair enough. Pregnancy exhausts you. But then she stopped answering my calls. When I'd text, Gerald would respond instead. She's sleeping. She's not feeling well. Doctor said she needs rest. I drove by their house one afternoon just to check on her. I know that sounds crazy, but something in my gut kept twisting. I saw her car in the driveway, saw the lights on inside, but when I knocked, no one answered. I called her phone. It rang from inside the house, but the door stayed closed. That was the first time I felt real fear. I started paying closer attention after that. The way Gerald always stood between us during conversations, the way Renee's voice got quieter over the months, the way she stopped making eye contact when I asked if she was okay. Terrence noticed too. "Ma, something's off with Gerald," he told me one night. "He won't let me come by unless he's home. Says Renee needs her space." Space from her own brother? That's what I said, but he just smiled and changed the subject. I wanted to confront Gerald, demand answers, but Renee was 7 months pregnant by then, and I didn't want to cause stress. I told myself I'd wait until after the baby came. Then we'd sit down, talk it through, figure out what was happening. I thought I had time. I thought birth would bring us closer. I was wrong about that too. The morning Terrence called to say Renee's water broke, I felt joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. My first grandchild. A new generation, a fresh start for all of us. I grabbed my coat, my purse, the baby blanket I'd been crocheting for months. I drove faster than I should have, praying at every red light, praying for a safe delivery, praying for health, praying for peace. When I got to the hospital, I could barely breathe. I was so excited, so ready to hold my daughter's hand and meet my grandson. But Gerald was waiting outside those delivery room doors like a guard dog. And the look on his face when he saw me wasn't surprise. It was satisfaction. Like he'd been expecting this moment, like he'd been planning for it. "She only wants family inside," he said. And I realized right then, standing in that bright hospital hallway with my crocheted blanket in my hands, that I'd missed something huge, something terrible, something that had been growing in the dark while I kept telling myself everything was fine. Renee hadn't pushed me away. She'd been stolen.
Gerald didn't move when I tried to step around him. He planted himself in front of the door like he owned it, like he owned her. "Gerald, please," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. "I need to see my daughter. She doesn't want you here. Let me hear that from her." He smiled, actually smiled. "She's in labor, Ma. She's not exactly taking visitors." "I'm not a visitor. I'm her mother. And I'm her husband." He crossed his arms. "Which means I make the calls now." The way he said it, the smugness, the ownership, it made my stomach turn. I looked past him through the small window in the door. I could see Renee on the bed, her face twisted in pain, a nurse adjusting her IV. She looked so small, so scared. "Renee!" I called out, pressing closer to the glass. Gerald stepped between me and the window. "Stop. You're going to upset her." "I just want to—" "You need to leave." My voice cracked. "Why are you doing this?" "I'm protecting my wife from unnecessary stress." He said it loud enough for the nurses at the station to hear, loud enough to sound reasonable. I tried to go around him one more time, and that's when he raised his voice. "Security! We need security!" A nurse hurried over, her expression apologetic but firm. "Ma'am, if the patient has requested limited visitors, we have to respect that." "But she didn't request it." My voice came out too loud, too desperate. People in the waiting area were staring now. "Please, just ask her. Ask her if she wants me here." The nurse glanced at Gerald, who shook his head slowly, like I was some unstable woman causing a scene. "Let's step back and give them some space," the nurse said gently.
guiding me away from the door. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shove past all of them and run to my daughter. But what would that do? Get me arrested? Banned from the hospital? So I stepped back. I let them push me into the waiting area, and I watched Gerald return to that delivery room, closing the door behind him, sealing Renee away from me. I sank into one of those plastic chairs that are designed to be uncomfortable. My hands were still clutching the baby blanket. The yarn felt rough against my palms. I'd spent 2 months making it. 2 months stitching love into every row, choosing the softest blue I could find. Now it just sat in my lap. Useless. The hours crawled by. I watched other families come and go, watched fathers pace nervously, watched grandmothers get ushered into delivery rooms with smiles on their faces, watched everyone else live the moment I was supposed to be having. Around hour 3, Terrence showed up. "Ma," he saw my face and immediately knew. "What happened?" "He won't let me in." "What do you mean he won't?" Terrence's jaw tightened. "Where is he?" "In there with her." Terrence marched straight to the nurse's station. I heard him arguing, his voice getting louder, but the response was the same. Patient's request, limited visitors, husband and brother only. "She didn't say that," Terrence snapped. "My sister wouldn't do that to our mother." But the nurse just repeated hospital policy, and Gerald's story held. Terrence came back looking defeated. "This doesn't make sense." "I know." "Why would Renee—" "She didn't." I met his eyes. "Gerald's lying." "Then why aren't the nurses questioning it?" "Because he's her husband and I'm just the mother-in-law." The title felt like poison in my mouth. We waited together after that. Terrence brought me coffee I couldn't drink. I stared at the clock on the wall, watching the second hand drag itself around. Each tick felt like an hour. At one point, I walked to the bathroom just to cry in private. I locked myself in a stall and pressed my hands over my mouth to keep the sobs quiet. 38 years in hospitals, and I'd never felt more helpless than I did right then. When I came out, I splashed cold water on my face and stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red and swollen. My hair was a mess. I looked exactly like what I was, a mother being erased. 6 hours after I arrived, Gerald finally came out. "It's a boy," he announced to the waiting area, grinning like he'd just won something. 8 pounds, 2 ounces, healthy. Relief flooded through me. Thank God. Thank God the baby was okay. I stood up. "Can I see them?" Gerald's smile faded. "Not right now. Renee needs to rest." "Just for a minute. I won't—" "She's exhausted. Maybe tomorrow." "Gerald, please. I'll let you know when she's ready." He turned and walked back through those doors, and they swung shut behind him with a soft whoosh that sounded like goodbye. Terrence grabbed my arm before I could follow. "Ma, don't. You'll make it worse." "How can it get worse?" But he was right. Causing a scene wouldn't help Renee. It would just give Gerald more ammunition, more proof that I was the problem. So I went home that night, without meeting my grandson, without holding my daughter, without understanding what I'd done to deserve this. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every moment, every decision I'd made in the last 6 years. Where did I go wrong? What did I miss? And then a worse thought crept in. What if Renee really didn't want me there? What if I'd become the burden Gerald said I was? What if my daughter had finally decided I wasn't worth the trouble? That thought hurt worse than anything Gerald had said, because I knew, deep down, it wasn't true. But doubt is a dangerous thing, and Gerald had planted it perfectly. I called the next morning. No answer. I texted. Nothing. I waited until afternoon and tried again. Still nothing. By day 3, I was losing my mind.
Terrence had managed to visit once. He said Renee looked tired, but okay. The baby was beautiful. Gerald barely left the room. And when Terrence asked if I could come by, Renee just stared at the wall and said, "Maybe later. Maybe later. Not yes, not no. Just maybe." It felt like being erased in slow motion. On day 4, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to their house. I didn't call first. I didn't ask permission. I just went. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Gerald's truck parked crooked, like he'd been in a hurry. The front curtains were drawn. The house looked closed off, uninviting. I knocked on the door, my heart hammering. Gerald answered holding the baby, my grandson, wrapped in a white blanket, tiny fists curled against his chest. He was perfect. Absolutely perfect. I reached for him instinctively. "Oh, Gerald, Gerald stepped back. "Renee's sleeping." "I know, I just wanted to—" "It's not a good time." I blinked. "When will it be a good time?" He shifted the baby to his other arm, putting more distance between us. "She'll call you when she's ready." "Can I at least come in for a minute, just to—" "No." He said it flatly, not angry, just final. "Gerald, what is going on? Why won't you let me see her?" "Maybe because she's finally realizing how exhausting you are." The words hit me like a slap. Exhausting? Yeah, always hovering, always worrying, always making everything about you. He leaned against the doorframe casually, like we were discussing the weather. "She told me about all the guilt trips you used to lay on her growing up, how you made her feel responsible for your happiness. That's not... And now you're doing it again. Showing up uninvited, demanding access to her baby, making her feel bad for setting boundaries." My throat tightened. "I never—" "She doesn't need you anymore, Elaine." He said my name like it tasted bad. "She's got a husband now, a real family. Maybe it's time you accepted that." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Gerald shifted the baby again, and that's when I heard it. A voice from inside the house. Faint, weak. "Gerald? Who's at the door?" "Renee! Baby, it's me!" But Gerald was already closing the door. "Just the mailman," he called back to her. Then he looked at me with something cold in his eyes. "Go home, Elaine." The door shut. I stood there on the porch, staring at the painted wood, listening to the muffled sounds of movement inside. My daughter was 20 feet away from me. 20 feet! And I couldn't reach her. I walked back to my car feeling numb, feeling small, feeling like maybe Gerald was right. Maybe I was too much. Maybe I'd been smothering her all these years without realizing it. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time before I could make myself turn the key. That night, I didn't sleep. I replayed every moment of Renee's childhood. Every decision I'd made as a mother, every time I'd pushed her to do better, be stronger, try harder. Had I been too hard on her? Too demanding? I thought I was teaching her resilience, but maybe I'd just been teaching her to run away from me. The week dragged on like that. No calls, no texts. Radio silence. Terrence stopped by my house looking frustrated. She won't talk to me now either. Gerald screens everything. Screens? He checks her phone, reads her messages. She's not allowed to answer unless he's in the room. My blood went cold. That's not normal. I know, but what am I supposed to do? Force my way in? We sat in my kitchen, drinking coffee that had gone cold. Neither of us had answers. Neither of us knew how to fight something we couldn't see or name. I tried calling again that night. Gerald answered Renee's phone.
She doesn't want to talk to you, he said simply. Then let her tell me that. I'm telling you. Gerald, I just want to hear her voice, just for a second, please. He laughed. Not a happy laugh, a mean one. You really don't get it, do you? You're not part of this family anymore. You're the past. We're the future, and the future doesn't include you. He hung up. I sat there holding my phone, staring at the screen, feeling the full weight of what was happening. This wasn't about boundaries or space or me being too involved. This was about control. Gerald was cutting me out deliberately, systematically. He was rewriting Renee's history, turning me into the villain, making himself the hero who saved her from her overbearing mother. And the worst part? I didn't know if Renee believed him. I spent the next few days in a fog. I went to work. I came home. I stared at the baby blanket still sitting on my couch, thought about throwing it away, thought about mailing it to them, thought about burning it in the backyard just to feel something other than this ache. But I couldn't. Because deep down, under all the doubt and hurt and confusion, I knew something was wrong. Mothers know. We know when something is hurting our children, even when we can't see the wound. I knew Renee. I knew her voice. I knew the way she moved through the world. And the silence coming from that house wasn't peace. It was fear. I just didn't know how to prove it. Then 2 weeks after the birth, my phone rang in the middle of the night. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Hello? Silence. Then a whisper. Ma? My heart stopped. Renee? Please don't talk loud, he checks my phone. The room tilted. Baby, what's... I can't talk long, he's in the shower, but Ma... Her voice broke. I didn't tell them to kick you out of the hospital. I begged them to bring you. I screamed for you. I told them to get you. But Gerald told the nurses I didn't want you there. He lied. The truth crashed over me like ice water. Why would he do that? Because he hesitated, because he didn't want you to know. Know what? She started crying, soft, terrified sobs. Ma, I'm so scared. He controls everything. My phone, my money, who I see, what I do, and the baby. The shower shut off in the background. I have to go, she whispered frantically. Wait, Renee. He's coming. I'll try to call again. I love you. The line went dead. I sat in the dark, gripping my phone, my entire body shaking. My daughter was trapped. And I'd spent 2 weeks doubting myself instead of fighting for her. Not anymore. Whatever it took, whatever I had to do, I was getting her out. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with my phone in front of me, willing it to ring again. But it stayed silent. By morning, I'd made a decision. I called Terrence, told him everything. The late-night call, Renee's whisper, Gerald's lies. We have to get her out of there, he said immediately. But how? If we just show up, he'll call the cops, say we're harassing them. Then we need proof. Proof of what? That he's controlling? That he lied at the hospital? I rubbed my face, exhausted. It's not illegal to be a terrible husband. It is if he's holding her against her will. We spent the next 2 days planning, watching, waiting for another chance. I drove past their house at different times, looking for patterns. Gerald left for work around 7 in the morning, came home around 6, but Renee's car never moved, not once. On the 3rd night, my phone rang again. Blocked number. I answered on the first ring. Ma? Renee's voice was stronger this time, still quiet, but less scared,
more determined. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. I need to tell you something, and you're not going to believe it. Try me. She took a shaky breath. Gerald forced them to induce my labor early. My stomach dropped. What? He went in for a normal checkup. Everything was fine. The doctor said I had at least 2 more weeks. But Gerald convinced them I was in distress. He kept pushing, kept insisting something was wrong. And they believed him. Why would he? Because he needed the baby born before January 1st. I didn't understand. Why? Because his company has a bonus program. New parents get $7,500 if the baby's born in the calendar year. Her voice cracked. He risked my life and the baby's life for a bonus check. I couldn't speak, couldn't process what I was hearing. Ma, he's been planning this for months. He isolated me from you and Terrence so no one would question it. He controlled my appointment so I wouldn't find out what he was doing. And when I started figuring it out, he made everyone think I was the one pushing you away. Oh, baby. I'm so sorry. I should have called sooner. I should have. No, don't apologize. None of this is your fault. He checks my phone every night, reads my texts, monitors my calls. I had to hide this phone in the diaper bag just to talk to you. She was crying now. I feel so stupid. How did I not see this coming? Because he's good at hiding it. That's what people like him do. I don't know what to do. He won't let me leave. He says if I try to take the baby, he'll call the police and say I'm unstable, that I'm a danger to myself. My hands clenched into fists. He can't keep you there. He can, and he will. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. Ma, I'm scared. I'm so scared. Listen to me. I made my voice firm, strong, the voice I used when she was little and afraid of thunderstorms. You are not staying in that house. Do you hear me? I'm coming to get you. He won't let you in. Then I'll break down the door. Ma, I don't care what it takes, Renee. I'm not leaving you there. He'll hurt you. Let him try. I heard a door slam in the background. Renee gasped. He's home early. I have to go. I have to. Call me the second you can. I mean it. I will. I love you. I love you too. The line went dead. I sat there for a moment, my heart racing, my mind spinning. Then I called Terrence. Get over here now. What's wrong? We're going to get your sister. When? Tonight.
Terrence arrived at my house 30 minutes later with his girlfriend Maya and a plan I hadn't expected. We're recording everything, he said, setting his phone on my kitchen counter. Every word Gerald says, every threat, every lie. We need proof in case this goes bad. Goes bad how? He could call the cops, say we're trespassing, breaking and entering. Terrence looked at me seriously. Ma, we need to be smart about this. Maya, who worked as a paralegal, chimed in. If Renee confirms she wants to leave, he can't legally stop her. But if he tries, we'll have it documented. I nodded, my hands trembling. I wasn't scared of Gerald. I was scared of failing my daughter again. We drove to the house just after 8. The sun had set and the streetlights cast long shadows across the front lawn. Gerald's truck sat in the driveway. The living room lights were on. I knocked on the door. Hard, loud, not apologetic. Footsteps inside. The door swung open. Gerald stood there holding the baby, wearing sweatpants and an irritated expression. When he saw all 3 of us, his face changed. What the hell is this? I'm here to see my daughter, I said firmly. She's resting. Then I'll wait. No, you need to leave, now. Terrence stepped forward. Let our sister speak for herself. Gerald's jaw tightened. This is harassment. This is family, I shot back, something you clearly don't understand. You don't get to show up at my house. It's Renee's house, too. He shifted the baby to his other arm, blocking the doorway completely. She doesn't want to see you. How many times do I have to say it? Let her say it. I'm speaking for her. You're silencing her. My voice rose despite myself. There's a difference. Gerald's face flushed red. You need to go before I call the police. Call them, Terrence said, pulling out his phone. I'll wait. For a moment, nobody moved. Gerald's eyes darted between the three of us, calculating. He wasn't used to people standing up to him. He was used to intimidation working. But tonight, it wouldn't. Fine, he said coldly. Stand out here and look stupid. I'm going inside. He started to close the door, but I jammed my foot in the gap. Move your foot, Gerald hissed. No. Move it or I swear. That's when we heard it. A cry from inside the house. Not the baby. Renee. Gerald, let me out. My heart exploded in my chest. Renee, I shouted. Ma! Her voice was desperate, closer now. Ma, please. Gerald tried to shut the door harder, but Terrence shoved it open. Gerald stumbled back, still holding the baby, his face twisted in rage. Get out of my house! But we were already inside. Renee appeared in the hallway. Her hair was tangled, her face pale and exhausted. She wore the same nightgown I'd seen her in 2 weeks ago. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. The second she saw me, she broke. Ma! She ran to me, sobbing, collapsing into my arms. I held her tight, feeling how thin she had gotten, how fragile she felt. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Shh, baby. It's okay. I'm here. Gerald stepped towards us. Renee, get back in the bedroom. She flinched, actually flinched at his voice. She's not going anywhere, I said, positioning myself between them. She's my wife. She's her own person. Gerald's expression turned vicious. You have no idea what you're doing. Renee, tell them. Tell them you want to stay here with me and our son. Renee looked at him, tears streaming down her face. I want to leave. The words hung in the air. Gerald's face went blank. You don't mean that. I do. Renee. His voice dropped low, dangerous. Think about what you're saying. Think about the baby. You can't take care of him without me. You're weak. You're confused. You need me. No. Her voice was small but steady. I don't. Gerald laughed. A cold, bitter sound. You really think you can just walk out? I'll call the cops. I'll tell them you're unstable, that you're a danger to our child. That's a lie, Terrence said, stepping forward. Then explain why you told the hospital staff she didn't want her mother in the delivery room when she was screaming for her. She was confused, in pain. She didn't know what she wanted. Or you lied, Maya said calmly, holding up Terrence's phone. And we've got everything you just said recorded. Gerald's face drained of color. You're bluffing. Try us, Terrence said. The room went silent except for the baby's soft cooing. Gerald looked at the phone, then at Renee, then at me. I could see him recalculating, trying to find a way to regain control. But he'd already lost. You're making a mistake, he said quietly, looking at Renee. You'll come back. You always come back. Renee lifted her chin. Not this time. And where are you going to go? Back to Mommy's house? You think that'll solve anything? It'll solve being away from you. The words landed like a hammer. Gerald's expression shifted from anger to something colder. Fine, leave, but you're not taking my son. He held the baby tighter, stepping back. Renee's face crumbled. Gerald, please, don't do this. He's mine. You walk out that door, you walk out alone. My blood boiled. You can't keep that baby from his mother. Watch me. Terrence moved toward him. Put the baby down. Or what? Gerald sneered. You'll assault me in my own home with witnesses? He was right. Legally, we couldn't just take the baby, not without police involvement, not without custody arrangements. But Renee wasn't leaving with her son. I could see the panic rising in her eyes, the same trapped look she'd had 2 weeks ago. Gerald knew that too. He was counting on it. "Renee," he said, his voice softening into fake gentleness, "come on, let's just talk. Let them leave and we'll work this out. Just you and me." She looked at him, then at me, torn between terror and desperation. That's when Terrence made the call. He dialed 911, put it on speaker, and said clearly, "I need police at 847 Elm Street. A man is refusing to let a mother leave with her infant and is threatening the family." Gerald's eyes went wide. "What are you—" "The officers are on the way," the dispatcher said. Gerald's face twisted. "You're insane, all of you." "We're protective," I corrected. "There's a difference." The next 10 minutes felt like hours. We stood in that living room, silent and tense, waiting. Gerald paced with the baby. Renee sat on the couch, shaking. Terrence kept his phone out, recording everything. When the knock finally came, Gerald rushed to the door. "Officers, thank God you're here. These people broke into my house and are trying to take my child." 2 officers stepped inside, assessing the situation. "Ma'am," one of them said to Renee, "are you okay?" She stood slowly. "I want to leave, with my baby, but my husband won't let me." "He's not in the right state of mind," Gerald interjected. "She just had a baby 2 weeks ago. She's emotional, irrational." The officer looked between them. "Sir, does your wife have a legal right to her child?" "Of course, but—" "Then she can leave with the baby." The officer turned to Renee. "Do you feel safe leaving with your family tonight?" Renee nodded, tears streaming. "Yes." "Then you're free to go." Gerald's face went red. "This is ridiculous. You can't just—" "Sir, unless there's a custody order or proof she's a danger to the child, she has every right to leave." The officer's tone was firm. "Now, I suggest you hand over the baby before this escalates." For a moment, I thought Gerald would refuse. I thought he'd make this even worse than it already was. But he looked at the officers, at the phone still recording, at Renee's determined face, and slowly, reluctantly, he handed over the baby. Renee took him, holding him close, sobbing into his blanket. "You'll regret this," Gerald said quietly. "All of you." "The only thing I regret," Renee said through tears, "is not leaving sooner." We walked out of that house together, Renee holding the baby, me holding Renee, Terrence and Maya flanking us like bodyguards. Behind us, Gerald stood in the doorway, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. But we didn't look back. We just kept walking. The first week at my house was rough. Renee barely slept. Every sound made her jump. She kept checking her phone, terrified Gerald would show up. But he didn't. He went silent. Too silent. That's what scared me most. Terrence hired a lawyer. We filed for a restraining order, started the divorce process. Everything moved slowly, but it moved forward. Then, 3 weeks after she left, the bank called. "Mrs. Dawson," the representative said, "we're calling about the credit cards opened in your name." Renee's face went pale. "What credit cards?" Turned out, Gerald had been applying for credit in her name for months. 5 different cards, over $30,000 in debt. Money transferred to accounts Renee didn't know existed. "He stole from me," she whispered, staring at the statements. "He used my information, my identity." "That's fraud," the lawyer said when we told her. "Criminal fraud." We filed a police report. The investigation started immediately. And the deeper they dug, the worse it got. Gerald had been taking out payday loans in Renee's name, forging her signature on documents, draining her savings account slowly over months so she wouldn't notice. "Why?" Renee asked one night.
sitting at my kitchen table, surrounded by paperwork. Why would he do this? Because he could, I said quietly. Because he thought you'd never leave, and he needed someone to blame when it all came crashing down. But the worst revelation came from the paternity test. Renee had requested one as part of the divorce proceedings, standard procedure. Nobody expected anything unusual until the results came back. Gerald wasn't Caden's biological father. Renee stared at the paper, her hands shaking. That's impossible. Are you sure? The lawyer asked gently. She stopped. Her face changed. Oh my God. She told us the story then, about the man she'd briefly dated before Gerald came back into her life, a kind man named Marcus. They dated for 2 months before Gerald showed up, apologizing for old mistakes, promising he'd changed. Renee broke things off with Marcus to give Gerald another chance. She hadn't known she was pregnant when she got back together with Gerald. Gerald knew it, she said, her voice hollow. He suspected from the beginning. That's why he pushed for the wedding so fast, why he wanted the baby born early, why he isolated me. He wanted the birth certificate signed before you found out, Maya said. Renee nodded, crying. He was going to trap me with a baby that wasn't even his, and when I found out the truth, he'd use it against me, say I was unfaithful, say I tricked him. My heart broke for her all over again. But Marcus, when we reached out to him, was nothing like Gerald. I never stopped thinking about her, he said when he met us at a coffee shop. He was a teacher, soft-spoken and genuine. When Gerald came back, I backed off. I didn't want to cause problems, but I always wondered what happened. When he found out about Caden, his eyes filled with tears. Can I meet him? He asked. I don't want to push. I don't want to make anything harder, but if there's a chance. Renee agreed, cautiously, carefully, but she agreed. Marcus met his son on a Tuesday afternoon in my living room. He held Caden like he was made of glass, tears running down his face, whispering, "Hi, buddy, I'm your dad." It wasn't a fairy tale. Life never is. But it was real, and it was healing. Meanwhile, Gerald's world fell apart. The fraud charges stuck, the identity theft, the financial abuse. Between the recorded conversations, the bank statements, and witness testimony, the case against him was solid. He was arrested on a Thursday morning. When Renee heard the news, she didn't celebrate. She just sat quietly on my couch, holding Caden, and said, "It's really over." "It's really over," I confirmed. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Renee got full custody. Gerald got supervised visitation rights he never used. The debt was erased from her name, the credit cards closed, the accounts frozen. He'd stolen from her, lied to her, trapped her. And now he was facing the consequences. Marcus became a steady presence in Caden's life, not rushing, not pushing, just showing up, being present, proving through actions, not words, that he was trustworthy. Renee started therapy, started rebuilding herself piece by piece. Some days were harder than others. Some nights she'd cry and say she should have seen it coming, should have known better. "You loved him," I'd tell her. "That's not a weakness. That's not your fault. But I let him control me. He manipulated you. There's a difference." Healing isn't linear. It's messy and slow, and sometimes you take 3 steps back for every one forward. But Renee was healing, and I got to be there for every moment of it. I got to hold my grandson without fear, got to help Renee through the hard nights, got to watch her find her strength again. One evening, 6 months after everything, Renee looked at me and said, "Thank you for not giving up on me." "Baby," I said, "I never could. Even when I couldn't ask for help, especially then." She hugged me tight. I love you, Ma. I love you too. Outside, the world kept turning, but inside my house, my daughter was safe, my grandson was growing, and our family, the real one, the one built on love instead of control, was stronger than ever. Gerald tried to break us. Instead, he showed us exactly what we were made of, and we were made of steel.
It's been a year now since that night. A full year since we walked out of that house with Renee and Caden. Renee has her own apartment now, small but cozy. She decorated it herself. Bright colors, soft blankets, pictures of people who actually love her. Marcus comes by twice a week. They're not together romantically, but they're good co-parents, good friends. And Caden is thriving. He's walking now, saying mama and nana and making messes everywhere he goes. He has my daughter's smile and Marcus's eyes and a personality all his own. Every Sunday, we have dinner at my house, just like old times, except now it's better because nobody's missing. Nobody's being kept away. Nobody's being erased. Terrence brings Maya. Marcus brings stories from his classroom. Renee brings laughter that sounds real again. And I bring the same love I've always had, just louder now, more visible, less apologetic. Because here's what I learned through all of this. When someone tries to cut you off from the people who love you, it's never about protecting you. It's about controlling you. Real love doesn't isolate. Real love doesn't demand you choose between your family and your partner. Real love doesn't make you feel small or crazy or like you're imagining things. Real love pulls you closer, not pushes you away. If someone in your life is telling you that your family is toxic, that your friends are bad influences, that you're better off alone with just them, that's not love. That's possession, and you deserve better. To anyone watching this who feels trapped, who feels like they can't speak up, who feels like maybe they're the problem, you're not. You're not too sensitive. You're not too dramatic. You're not imagining it. Trust your gut. Trust the people who loved you before that person came along. Trust that you deserve to be free. And to the mothers out there who feel like they've lost their children to controlling partners, don't stop fighting. Don't stop showing up. Don't stop believing that your child knows, somewhere deep down, that you love them. Because they do. They know. And one day, when they're ready, they'll find their way back to you. Just like Renee found her way back to me. Gerald thought he could erase me, thought he could rewrite our history and make himself the hero of Renee's story. But you can't erase a mother's love. You can suppress it. You can silence it. You can try to lock it out. But it always finds a way back in. Always. What's your experience with family members who tried to keep you apart from people you love? Share your story in the comments. You're not alone, and your voice matters.